Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of H.R. 56, the Financial Technology Protection Act. Our number one priority is to ensure the safety of the American people, especially from terrorists and terror organizations seeking to take away the freedoms we hold dear. This bipartisan legislation is a prime example of how we can reach across the aisle and find common ground in the fight against terrorism as well as illicit finance. H.R. 56 establishes an independent financial technology task force, which will improve coordination between the private and public sectors in order to research and develop tools to combat terrorism and the illicit use of financial technologies, including digital currencies. Recent studies have found evidence that terrorists, especially lone wolf actors, use digital currencies. A public-private task force, as established through this legislation, can inform Congress on the legislative and regulatory steps needed to stop these bad actors. Furthermore, this bipartisan bill would incentivize individuals to come forward with knowledge of possible terrorist and illicit financing that is involved in digital currencies by offering monetary rewards for information that leads to successful convictions. A reward program is just the kind of innovation in policymaking that we need to stay in step and ahead of terrorists. Last Congress, the Treasury Department informed our committee that using such unconventional tools could be critical in generating useful intelligence. And I applaud Mr. Budd and Mr. Lynch for thinking creatively in this process and listening to testimony and taking that and putting that in legislative form. The threat of illicit use of digital currencies is evolving, and policymakers must work together to find best practices and solutions. That is why this bipartisan bill is so important. Furthermore, I would add that digital currencies have enormous potential benefits. And we want to understand those benefits, but we also want to understand those costs involved as policymakers. We want to be smart about it. And I think it's useful and helpful for us to begin with understanding how we stamp out bad actors and their use of digital currencies before we move into that next set of conversation about how we properly enhance their utility in our society. And I want to thank, again, my colleagues from Massachusetts, Mr. Lynch, for his work here, and my colleague from the great North State, from North Carolina, Mr. Budd, first for their relationship on this important policymaking and their willingness to work across the aisle in order to get good legislation that is ensuring the safety of the American people. I'd urge my colleagues to support H.R. 56 as a common sense, forward-looking approach to combating terrorism, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from North